Spectre is directed by Sam Mendes and stars Daniel Craig as Bond. This is the newest 007 movie. It also stars Lea Seydoux, Ray Fiennes, Christoph Waltz, and Bautista. Similar to Quantum of Solace, this is in a way an actual Bond sequel. It ties into the other films very well. In this film, 007 receives a message from someone who's very important to him, asking him to look into something, which leads to a big, gigantic mystery surrounding this group called Spectre, led by Christoph Waltz's character, Overhauser. And that sets off a series of events that lead to some very personal discoveries for 007. Now, if you guys have been following my channel for a while, you know that I'm a huge James Bond fan. I've loved James Bond my entire life. I just reviewed GoldenEye and Casino Royale. I really enjoyed Skyfall. I thought it was a great James Bond movie. And in case you were wondering, Quantum of Solace is one of the most disappointing movies I've ever seen in my entire life, filled with hyperactive editing, a terrible story, a weak villain, and a script that was obviously turned in incredibly rushed. So I was excited to see what Sam Mendes would do with Spectre because he also directed Skyfall. And even though Casino Royale is still my favorite Bond movie, I was very hopeful for Spectre despite some rather mixed reviews that I've been reading. Now, I have seen every single James Bond movie, even the unofficial Never Say Never Again. I enjoy Ian Fleming's novels. As you can see, I've put up my favorite novel of his behind me. So when I walk into a Bond movie, I'm excited. I am there because I love the character and I love the lore. And I had a fantastic time with Spectre. I think it is a very riveting action movie. It's a great adventure. It has tons of terrific set pieces, more action than Skyfall. Now, I know some people were disappointed in Skyfall's more somber, grim elements. If that was the case for you, you might actually find yourself enjoying Spectre more because it's a considerably more action-driven spectacle. Daniel Craig is once again great as the character. Q returns and is fantastic. Ray Fiennes, Naomie Harris all give very good performances. And Bautista in this film is sort of like the big guy in the Indiana Jones movies. Do you know what I mean? In every Indiana Jones film, there's always this big, humongous guy he has to fight. Whether it's the plane fight in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the big thuggy guard in Temple of Doom, Vogel in Last Crusade, or the big Russian guy in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There's always this huge guy that challenges Indiana Jones to a fight. And Bautista is basically that guy for Bond in this movie. He shows up every once in a while, he does something incredibly badass, and he's very good at it. The dialogue for his character, very minimal. There's not much going on there. He's basically just a big, huge badass, and he works very well as that in this movie, and it leads to a great fight scene on a train. One of my favorite Bond fight scenes I've seen. What halts Spectre from being a great James Bond film are some issues with its script and the way it approaches some of its villainous characters. There's a subplot in this movie involving a guy named C, who feels that the 00 program is extinct. He wants to take over MI6 with technology. He feels that that's the future. This entire subplot screeched the brakes on this movie for me every single time it was brought up. I was really invested in Bond's adventure. It was a personal journey. He was learning a little bit more about himself. But then every time it cut back to MI6 and this guy just sitting behind a desk wanting to take over MI6 with technology and surveillance rather than agents in the field, it was a very dull subplot. There wasn't much weight to it. And the reason it didn't work for me is because you feel as if the script needs it. It's integral to the plot. So the film has to keep cutting back to it because the script needs it to be there for certain things to work. And so they come off as scenes that the film needs but doesn't actually need. Now, as I said, my biggest issue with this movie is how the script handles its villains. So let's talk about Overhauser, played by Christoph Waltz. The scenes that he's in, he's great. I mean, the introduction to his character was masterful. I mean, masterful. It was suspenseful. It was marvelously well shot, as is the entire film. The cinematography is lush and gorgeous. But that introduction gives us a promise. It was similar to our introduction to Silva, played by Javier Bardem in Skyfall. It gave us a promise for an intense character, for a great villain. But Spectre doesn't keep that promise because he's really not in the movie for that much. And when he does show up, it's sort of like, hey Bond, I'm here to ruin your life for a few minutes, is that okay? The script is trying to make this a considerably more personal adventure for Bond than it actually comes off in the movie, because the unfortunate thing that I found as I was watching Spectre was that the script didn't really dive as deep personally as I feel it wanted to. It retreated a little bit too much in the very easy James Bond formula. This film opens with the gun barrel sequence in the beginning, just like all the other ones, except for the past three we've seen. Bond orders his traditional shake and not not stirred drink in this movie, despite the fact that in Casino Royale he said, "Do I look like I give a damn?" when the bartender asked him what he wanted. That character is no longer here. Now we're in this more traditional Bond character, and its retreat into formula did bother me. I like the fact that the previous films went away from the formula and tried to do something different. With Spectre, Sam Mendes seems a little bit too much in love with the classic Bond and wanting to bring those elements back. What I liked so much about movies like Casino Royale was that it took some of those elements away to make a more compelling story while still making Ian Fleming's character of James Bond the best he'd ever been. So my issues with the movie are entirely in the script, 100% in the script. This is a beautifully directed movie with incredible action scenes that are well helmed, well acted. The stunts are great. There is not a single problem I have with this movie technically. It is a technically efficient movie, an extremely fun James Bond movie, and a really good James Bond movie. My issues are 100% with the script and how it treats some of its characters, particularly the villains, and the fact that it doesn't really delve as deep into their personal problems as I think it wants to, and that it retreats into 007 formula a little too much. So really, I think those issues could have been solved with just one more rewrite. That's all I'm thinking it could have taken. And last but not least, let's talk a little bit about Lea Seydoux. She is a marvelous actress. I've liked her in many films in the past, movies like Blue is the Warmest Color and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. She is very good in this movie, and when her and 007 are forced to go on this mission together, they have excellent chemistry, and you feel as if something tangible is there in regards to a possible romance, but the film doesn't explore that relationship as well as it could have or give as much time to it as it really should, so when certain things are said later in the movie, you don't really buy it. Nevertheless, despite some of these issues with the characters, as well as the subplot that I didn't care for, I found Spectre to be a very entertaining James Bond movie. It is not a perfect James Bond movie. It's not as good as Skyfall, and it's definitely not as good as Casino Royale, but it is loads better than Quantum of Solace, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because it is much better. Trust me, this is much better than that just on one thing alone: the editing. Just the editing alone makes this movie better than Quantum of Solace. I'm going to give Spectre a B+. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. I hope you check out my review for Casino Royale and GoldenEye that are currently on my channel. As always, guys, you're the best. Thanks very much for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmannized.